to another episode of the Total R&B Podcast. My name is Loreena, and today I have a singer, a songwriter, creative director, a music video director, everything and so much more. She is a Toronto-based, and she's here to talk to us about her upcoming EP that's coming out on October 1st called To Do. So welcome to the podcast, Beauty in the Riot. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for that introduction. I was
No,
like, well, I do a lot of things.
no, you do a lot of things. You do a lot of things on your own. So we're going to get into that slowly to see how you built your career over the years and all the exciting things that you have coming up. So I always start the podcast off the same way. I always ask the same question first, and that is, what comes to mind when I say, what is your first memory of R&B music?
Wow. For me, that may be a little bit different because I grew up in a very musical family with my dad being a singer, of course. Although I want to say he's my first memory, I think my first solid memory of R&B might actually be Sade because my parents used to play Sade a lot when I was a kid. And I think that's when I really like noticed R&B. I was like a Alanis Morissette loving girly when I was literally little, but I remember Sade really like I remember it clear as day being a kid and just hearing her voice and her tonality, and so that might be the first time I really like took in R&B being a little bit different than other genres, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And that's one of the beautiful things I always say, especially when I interview Canadian artists, is that we grew up with a blend of so much different music. So maybe one type of music was played in the house, but then on the radio, we got something else. And then being in school with all different types of backgrounds and ethnicities, we are introduced to so much different music. So that's the beauty of it. And even your music, it incorporates different genres like R&B, pop, jazz, soul, like everything is in it. So besides Alanis Morissette, who are some other artists that influence you?
Um, I think Angie Stone was one when I was really younger. I was thinking about that today because I listened to her today. I think Angie Stone was one. Amy Winehouse, I know is said a lot, but that's like a very, very pillar. I think a pillar of my jazz loving is Amy Winehouse, and also Ella Fitzgerald, sorry. Etta James was played a lot in my house. And like Jessie Reyez, in terms of like Canadian talent, Jessie Reyez is a huge inspiration to me. I have a lot of inspirations that have their own tone and their own sound, and I think that that was really, really something that allowed me to make music and feel comfortable. Is when I started to realize you don't have to sound just like everyone else or a specific belting singer in order to be a singer or an artist. So those are some of my influences. There's many. Like I listen to Tool, I listen to everything. So there's a lot.
No, of course. And is that something that would attract you to them? Is like their tone, their voice? Because some people are attracted to the melody at first, or the lyrics might have caught their ear, but for you, was it like their tone?
I'm a big lyrics person, so I know a lot of people will notice like the beat first. I often will notice the lyrics first, but tone is huge to me. I think it goes back to me kind of loving when people as humans, not artists, are just themselves. And I think when someone has a specific tone and that's like their authentic sound, it really attracts me to the music. And I was into Billie Eilish very, very early. I got to see her like first tour here in Toronto at the Phoenix. And I remember going and people were like, why are you going to see her? Like she's an artist for teenagers. Like why, like what do you mean? And I was like, just wait. You'll understand soon enough. And for me with her, it was the lyrics were incredible, but it was her tone was something different from what everything else was at the time. So it's one of the things, lyrics and tone for sure.
I love that because not a lot of people mention that sometimes when they're talking about their favorite artists and things like that. So I think that is something important too, and that we don't always get to hear is different tones or people being themselves. I know it's more common now, but I feel like before, and even sometimes with like major labels, they kind of want to put you into a box and make you sound like whoever the biggest selling artist is at that time. They want like it's okay, a little ones to follow, so not everyone getting to be themselves, which is important. So for you, when did you start singing?
I actually can't like think of when I started singing because I actually started off rapping as a
Oh,
kid. Yeah, so I used to do raps for my talent show about like my best friend moving away, my teacher. Every year I do a rap, and I was actually very shy when it came to singing because my dad was a singer. Um, I kind of shied away from singing because he was so good at it that I was like intimidated. I actually started off rapping at like, I think I was in grade 3 when I first started like writing raps with my dad. Singing, I don't think came to me like until much later, just singing along to songs. But actually being a singer, I don't think came until I was like in more of a teenager, like 15, 16 is when I really started to sing. Um, yeah, mostly because I was intimidated. Like I loved singing, I loved writing. I've always been a writer. I was always dancing as a kid. Dance was like one of my major passions. Making up choreography in my bedroom, like to everything. And acting, I did like some acting when I was younger too, but singing was something I was always shy about until later on.
So you just sang like in the house. You wouldn't sing
Yeah.
like for people or in the talent shows or anything like that.
No.
Oh wow. And then but you did say your dad would help you with the raps, right?
Yeah, yeah. He would sing the chorus,
Oh,
actually.
okay. So you did a trade off.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. We would write together and he would sing the chorus. Obviously, I was young, so he definitely helped me with the writing for sure. But I was actually rapping and I would perform and then the chorus would just play like on the track. And then my two best friends, who still to this day I'm friends with them. It's just so funny because they used to be like my backup dancers in the talent show.
Love
And
it.
we do this every year. So, yeah, it was really, really cute to look back on because I often forget that I'm like, oh, you did start making music pretty young because I wasn't singing. Most people are like, oh, I've been singing since I was 8 in church, or I've been singing. But for me, it actually was much later that I started singing.
That's amazing though, but still to do something like that so young, I'm always amazed because like yes, we love to do certain things, but to really go out there and do it in front of people, whether it was rapping or singing, just to, get that done is it's pretty amazing. It's pretty cool. And so then when did you decide to like make this more of a profession instead of like just doing it maybe in talent shows and at home?
Well, I think it was like 2015. I was started modeling and I was doing like making songs with my friend and I was doing it more for me. Like it was fun and I enjoyed it and I was singing here and there. One of my photographers, Brandon, heard the song and he's like, you should shoot a music video. Like, this is a great song. So we ended up shooting a music video using some of my friends in it. And it was so much fun. We went to Kensington Market and like just kind of took over and it was a good memory. And I think for a while I play shows and had a backup band and stuff, but I was more doing it for me, which is interesting to look back on because I wasn't doing it like for the numbers on Spotify or to like get interviews like or to write a bio. I was just doing it for fun. Unfortunately, 2019 was like a really hard year for me. 2018 and 2019. In 2018, I lost my best friend passed away like very suddenly. She was one of my biggest supporters. Like she would come to shows. I played a small show. I swear there was like 4 people there and she was one of them. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
she would come to shows. She's always supporting me. She was the one that set me up with that photographer that ended up becoming my videographer at the time. And then a year and like a week later, my boyfriend passed away, who I lived with for like 4 years. And it really hit me that like these two people who supported me so much in just like loving any passion I did, but really with music, they were always like, you should keep going. Like, you're good at this, weren't here not necessarily to support me, but they weren't here to like go fulfill their passion, to like get to pursue something they loved and like find that for themselves. Not saying they didn't have things they loved and pursued when they were here, but they were so young, like in your 20s, they didn't even have a chance really to fulfill everything that I feel like they should have been able to do. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this for them. Like I'm going to continue doing music and really taking it seriously for them, sort of like in honor of them and in order to like fulfill one of our dreams.
Yeah.
I want to do it for us. So that's actually why I started taking it more seriously and decided like I'm going to do this, because they would have wanted me to. So it's more like to make them proud and just to fulfill something that is kind of like if I win, I feel like all of us win, like so that's kind of well, that is why. That's why.
No, but that's beautiful that you're able to keep going and also, keeping their memory alive as well by you continuing to doing your music. And that's a question I was going to ask you later on because I did read about that losing your friend, your ex-boyfriend. Unfortunately, you lost your father, and this is all happening at a young age.
Mhm.
So how were you able to deal with grief? Because a lot of people don't talk about grief. We talk about everything else under the sun, but we never talk about grief and how to deal with that.
So dealing with grief was something, unfortunately, that I had to deal with so young with my dad. But just because you deal with it once, it's different. Every type of loss is different, and I definitely grieve differently for each person, I find. I'm someone who needs to dive into the pictures and the photos and the voice notes and look at all of our text messages, whereas some people like can't do that. It's too much for them. And I don't really know that there was a specific way. Like I did go to counseling a little bit later on after I lost my partner. I went to counseling because I was like, "Okay, listen, like these are three big losses. Maybe I should try to go." And I went to group counseling because I actually wanted to feel less alone in my loss, not so much to specifically talk about myself. So I also, when Clubhouse was a thing back, during the pandemic, that app was really big. I went on there and I started a group called What is Grief? And it was like a room that would happen every Sunday for 2 hours. And I had a pastor who's in this from the States, and I had two grief coaches that would come. And the pastor was more like once in a while because I know everyone has different faiths, so I wanted to make sure there was somebody in the room that could cater to that. And also, I'm not an expert, right? So I wanted to make sure I had some grief coaches that were in that room. And I think it was really important for us it to be like a space for everyone, but I think it was important for me for them to be a Black space because I feel like in our culture specifically, we really shy away from mental health and grief, and it's something where like everyone has to be a strong person going through this world. And I think it was like I wanted the space to be open to everyone, every ethnicity, every walk of life, but also for visually to be represented by that demographic. And I think that helped me, like hearing other people's stories, being able to share my story, and not necessarily having all the answers, but just having a space where people could be like, this is how I feel. And all of a sudden, this really upset me. And this really like took me by surprise. But for some reason, the season changed, and all of a sudden I felt even more sad, which is a very common thing with grief when seasons change because it's a new era and it's a new section of life without that person. So you start to remember all the things you did in that season. So I think that was one thing that helped me, finding a community of other people who have lost people, which isn't talked about a lot. You do talk about therapy, like one on one. But I think the sense of community is so important for us as human beings. And I think that's one of the things that really helped me throughout it. It wasn't necessarily like there were obviously some family and friends that were there, but I think everyone grieves differently. When you can find a community of people who you don't necessarily know, so you feel almost even more comfortable talking to them, that was huge for me. And I mean, it's an ongoing thing. I lost my pappy, who was like the cutest little old man ever. I lost him this summer, so it's like, and that's a completely different way of me grieving because I've never lost somebody who is in their 80s, and it is more of a natural progression, but it's still hard. So that's like a new era for me because sadly everyone I lost was, my dad was 39, everyone I lost was under 40. So this is like a different chapter and a new way of grief where my mind is a little bit less like shocked by it, but it doesn't hurt any less.
Mhm.
So
No, but that's really amazing that you were able to take the initiative to start that community on Clubhouse. Because, like I said, it's something I think a lot of people are looking for or would need, but we don't do it, and especially in the Black community. So that's why find it so important to kind of I took it upon myself to start to learn about grief because I've lost a lot of people in my life as well. But it's always something where you lose someone, but the world keeps going. So you just feel like you just have to keep going, but you don't really take that time to really grieve until it hits you again. And you're just like, whoa, like, what is happening? But
for
I find
sure.
it's taught to just move on basically after a certain amount of time, so
Yeah. And
really important.
just gonna say something quickly with what you just said, because that was something I really find, like when someone's gone and you walk outside and people are laughing and walking around and jogging in the morning, like it's a shock because I think your mind needs a second to process, but our bodies and our habits keep going. And that was one thing for me that was lucky about having COVID happen and having everything shut down is I had these two major losses back to back, and then within a few months later the world did stop. So I think like as awful as it was, and obviously I'm not saying COVID was a good thing, but for me, one of the major benefits to that was I feel like my mind had a chance to like actually just process everything. And yeah, obviously you don't want that to happen every time you lose someone, but it going back to what you said, like it really is something you need the world to stop for a second. And I think it's okay to take those breaks, and we don't have to pretend we're okay, because all that does is in 5 months, 3 months, 2 years, 6 years, you're going to have a breakdown out of nowhere, and you're not going to know why, because you have to process in order to actually heal, or else the trauma is just going to live in you and pop out in weird ways. So
Yeah, no, that is very true. Um, Holding stuff in is never good. But even what you said about COVID, like, yes, it wasn't a good time, but there is some good that came out of it for some people,
Mhm.
not everybody. Some
Yeah.
people really struggled during that time and it wasn't a good time, but some people found themselves during that time. They, changed their beliefs. They found who they really are. People started businesses and different things did happen. So sometimes you have to look for those good things in those like hard times. And that's what I was going to ask you too about your name, Beauty in the Riot. Like, is that where you got your name from? And what does that mean in terms of like your career?
Okay, so I'm very impressed because I think you're the only person that's ever kind of alluded to that with my name. So I'm impressed. Yeah, I used to go by Yasmin Soul. That was my original name. And after having these losses, I just didn't feel like the same person. Like it wasn't like a decision of we're gonna like switch to brand. Nowadays people are like, okay, we're just switching the brand image, or we're gonna switch our brand. I didn't even think of myself as a brand. I just was like, I don't feel like that girl anymore. I still like these songs, but I just don't even feel the same person. Like if I was to be cheesy, but like if I was a butterfly, like I feel like I just came out of the cocoon as a caterpillar and was like, okay, now I'm a butterfly, and now I don't even feel like that caterpillar anymore. So I was sitting at my boyfriend at the time. It was his funeral, and I was sitting there, and there was a butterfly, speaking of which, that was continuously like smacking me in the face for so long that I took a video of it. And I remember his mom sitting next to me and be like, this is kind of strange. And I don't try to push the beliefs of signs and things like that on everyone, but for me, like I believe in that kind of stuff. So it's like, this has to be a sign. And then later on in the summer, my friend Joe, at first he was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's cute that that happened to you. And then we were hanging out on his name is Reed, my boyfriend who passed. We were hanging out at Reed's parents' porch, visiting with them, and this butterfly kept hitting me in the face, like, and this was probably a month or two later, and he goes, you know what, I think I believe you. He's like, there was a time where I was like, oh, that's nice, but now that I see this happening, and that's just one moment where there was beauty in a really terrible time. Like here I am about to, you know, be at a funeral for someone who I lived with, loved, cared for. This is like my worst nightmare at this point. And yet I'm finding a moment that's beautiful within this. And that happens with everyone can has a moment like that, where someone passes, for example, and a joke will be made or something. Like humans have this really amazing ability to find humor or to find something beautiful in these tough moments that I think we forget about. And for me, I was like, okay, like the name came from that. Like it wasn't I'm a beauty. It was more like there's beauty in these moments, but I couldn't call myself, beauty in the bullshit. So I was like, okay, let's go with Beauty in the Riot. And at first I'm like, this is going to be a long name. Like I know some people are going to say it's too long. It's too much of a statement, all these things. But I was like, this is also my whole why is about this. So this makes complete sense. And so I have people either call me Beauty or Riot. Like I'm like, they say, which one do you want to be called? Most people call me Beauty, but I'm like, it's totally up to you. And I think that's like where my name came from. And it's kind of part of these conversations that's so exciting is I've never really got to tell that side until now with this release of what my name even means. I've never really posted fully like the whole story of it. So it's exciting and refreshing to be able to actually explain it.
Yeah, no, that's cool because even like just reading about your story, like just looking on your website, looking at your bio and the things that you've been through. So I was like, oh, I didn't want to assume that's where the name is coming from, but that's why I got that idea and to ask you that question because I didn't see anybody ask you about your name as of yet. So I just wanted to know because I thought it was very interesting when I did even get the email about you. And I was like, oh, that's like a very different name for like an artist name, but I liked it and I wanted to get to know more. So that's why I asked you just to make sure, like, where did it come from exactly? But I think I like the name. So I don't
Thank
think it's too
you.
long. I think it really goes well with your story and the music that you're putting out too, as well. So I'm here for it.
Thank you.
I'm also here for the signs because I also do believe we do get signs. I'm such a big sign girl. So even one time, my friend, she lost her grandmother, and I always feel that because they were close and they were a lot alike, and she found out more about her after she had passed, how much
Mm.
they're alike. And I feel like there was something that her mom had said, but I felt like we felt like a bird kind of represented the grandmother, and she had this like salon at one point, and there was always a bird that would come on the ledge, and she's like, and she doesn't like birds, my friend, so she's just like,
Okay.
I'm gonna get rid of this bird, and da 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 da, I'm gonna shoot something out the window. I'm like, girl, I'm like, what if that's her grandmother trying to give you a sign? And she's like, oh my god, you might be right. And I'm like, look at you trying to kill the bird, and the bird's to give you a sign. So I'm very big on signs. I will be like, no, this probably means this because you're going through this. That's
Yeah,
how I am.
I
Very.
completely agree. I completely agree.
But another thing about you that I saw, especially through your songs and on your Instagram, you say you're a lover girl. No, your music is all about love. And even this EP that's coming out too, it talks about, different layers of love. So why did you choose to talk about love on this EP?
It's funny because obviously all artists we have, most of us have like a bunch of songs. So I have my sad breakup girl toxic songs, of course, but I didn't ever plan for the EP to be all about love. It actually took me putting it together and looking back and being like, "Oh, there's no breakup songs on this." Like, and I was like, "Oh, I've been making these like songs all about different stages of love." Now there still is like I miss you or you're not together with the person, but nothing where it's like a toxic breakup and you're heartbroken. Like my heart was never broken in any of these songs, which was my heart has been broken in real life obviously many times, but I feel like it made me really happy to know that because I do feel like we're missing the love songs lately. I feel like there's a lot of gender wars, for lack of a better word. It's very much like men are trash, women are gold diggers, and this and that. And like, for sure, like some people are that, but I think that we're forgetting that the yin and the yang of just people, human beings, and not that. And I think I miss songs. I miss the love songs. I miss the cheesy like R&B, jazz, pop, all of it. Like all of it's kind of talking about sort of the negative aspects or breakup songs. And I think in a lot of ways, and we can't hold me to this because I will be putting out breakup songs too, but I think we have to put out what we want to see in the world as well. And that's why I was really happy when I looked back and was like, okay, like if I can sum this up, like these are some love songs, and the only heartbreak song on that is more about mental health than it is about like a person breaking your heart. It's about you trying to go through something. So, yeah, I definitely was excited to look and see that I'd made these songs that are all kind of happy, whether you can tell or not, because they're slower and, vibey, but none of them are actually about like your heart being broken, which I think was important to me.
No, I think that's amazing because I've been saying it for a while. I'm tired of the toxic titles and the toxic love and the breakup and the gender wars on all the podcasts and it's coming out into music. Like I am done. I want to hear about love. I always go have to go back and listen to music from like the 70s, the 80s, the 90s when they were actually talking about love. So I love that you're, giving us something different that we do need in the world right now. And why the title To Do?
This is actually it's funny. So, one of the songs on there is called To Do. I I actually wanted to call it Toxic Temptress, speaking of toxic, because Toxic Temptress isn't actually like fully about being toxic. It's about that feeling where the person still misses you and you kind of like love that feeling. It's not necessarily about heartbreak. It's more that feeling of being like, "Oh, I know you still miss me because I know like I'm great." And I just thought it was a cool name. I was like, that'd be kind of a cool name, Toxic Temptress. And then my graphic designer, Zane, he did the because the flames are real. Like no one's seen it as of yeah, but I'm sure when this comes out they will. The flames were real. We really did light this on fire. And he put To Do And I was playing with some names and I was like, I feel like Toxic Temptress isn't gonna fit and look aesthetically the way like this looks. It looked so beautiful. So as much as my name has a deep meaning, To Do was really like a song that was coming out and it was supposed to be the To Do cover art. But I loved it so much that I was like, no, this has to be the EP cover art. Like it's just something so I really love the cover art. I just think it's really cool. And I was like, no, we have to save this. So originally it was supposed to be the cover art for To Do. And I knew switching it to Toxic Temptress would not fit and look the same. Like it would change the whole look. It would look very fake, like CGI, like
Mm.
vibes. And so it's not in a super exciting story, but it's mostly because I just loved the artwork, and I was like, I have to actually have this as the cover art, so it's being called To Do. And then looking back on it, I thought it was kind of cool because I always thought to do like this is on my to-do list to put out an EP and to do these different things that I have on my list as an artist. So in the end, it did end up meaning something to me in the end. So
No, I mean, look, it works, but Toxic Temptress is a very like good name, but you can always use that later on down the line, right? So have it tucked away and then bring it out when, it works. So I love that. And then there's a song that's on the album called What If, where you collaborated with It's Trey. So how did you two connect to make this duet?
so exciting news about that song is we shot a music video already. It'll be out like probably October 8th or 9th, around there. Interesting story about that song. A guy sent me a voice note, a guy that I know, sent me a voice note, and a guy sent me a voice note shooting his shot. And I was like, I kept the voice note. I was like, no, like, thank you, but no. Like, we're gonna stay at the friend box. But I really want to use this voice note for a song because it's so good. And fortunately, he was like, go ahead, girl, do what you need to do.
Nice.
So yeah, so nice. And now he's in a really like great relationship. They have kids, like he's everything worked out for him. So I'm super happy for him. But I kept the voice note. I was like, I have to put this in a song. So the beginning voice note is actually a real story. And then I wrote to the music, and I left spaces for I was like, I know I want to feature on this because I think it'd be really cool to have a song about like two artists who are like falling in love, and say like one wants to get famous and wants all these things and the other one doesn't. The other one's in it for the art, and now she's like, I know you're in it for the women, like I'm not trying to do all that. And he's back and forth saying, and no, I've grown, like you're thinking about the old me. And I loved this idea of the back and forth. And so I wrote the original. There was a couple people that I'd sent it to and been like, hey, do you want to hop on this? And they were kind of like taking their time. I was driving around listening to it, as artists do, because we're always listening in our cars while we're like thinking of how to tweak it, how to make it better. And I ended up just singing the rest of it. So I actually wrote all of What If. And then I was like, sorry guys, I finished the song. And I was playing a show I played before, and Trey played as well, and he played after me. And his vibe on stage was really like just amazing energy. I'm a big energy girl, and his energy was great. I love that he had all his boys there singing his love songs. Like they were hyping him up as if he was in the NBA. Like they were jumping around. But the thing is, the songs were not like that energy. They were love songs, and I just thought that was so beautiful. Going back to just having like people in your life that support you, right? So the whole vibe of his songs, and then also just the community he had, I'm like, this guy has to be a good person, to have this. And I reached out to him. He was super easy to work with. I was like, listen, I wrote this whole song. Some artists are not going to want to do it because they're not writing it. So I'm like, I've already written the song. I want it sang the same way I sang it. Obviously, he's got really dope runs and things that he can do with his voice. So I was like, there's definitely room for you to like do those things, but I would love for you to sing like melody wise, just what I wrote. So he did it justice and was amazing to work with. So that's how What If came about. We shot the video this year, but it took me like 2 years, I think, to find the right voice to sing it, because I kind of knew what I wanted, but I didn't know like I didn't really know anyone that fit it. And then I saw him perform. I was like, perfect. So we're actually talking about doing a couple more songs together. So I love working with him. He's like just an amazing artist. And I feel like he's one that like when people really start to discover him, he's gonna have a really, really solid fan base because he's just incredible. Like his voice is incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I that's how I discovered him on your song, and I just thought you guys complemented each other really well. And he has a really nice voice, so that's one of so far like that's one of my like favorite songs that I heard. I really, really do enjoy it. I did want to ask you about one part of the lyrics in that song. Sorry if I messed up on some of the words.
No worries.
You
Good.
said the dream I am chasing ain't fame, and I don't want to get so big that I don't know my own name. So I know you were saying that like one of the people in the song, they're not doing it for the fame. You know, they're doing it more so for the love of the art. So for you in your career, like where do you see yourself going, and how are you going to keep yourself kind of like authentic to who you are as you grow?
Mm. Um, so part of me keeping myself authentic, I don't think I'll ever have that problem because being in a household where like my mom's in film and she worked on Dune 2 and she works on some of the biggest, coolest movies with some of the, the top actors in the world. And then my dad was winning Junos and touring with James Brown. Like I was in a house where my parents didn't have much like growing up and they really hustled and made a name for themselves and were always humble and are always humble. Like my mom is the first person to I remember when we were younger, she was offering one of the squeegee like homeless women on I think it was on Young. Like I remember this clear as day. She had a baby with her. My mom was like, "Do you want to come to her house and take a shower and like we'll get you food?" And my dad would always be talking to the janitor of the venue that he was performing at and like really like caring like, "Oh, you have two kids? Like, oh, what did they do? What did they like?" And I think because it's instilled in me, I'll never lose that. Like, I think it's almost impossible for me to lose that because of that. Because it doesn't matter how cool your job is. You are a human being just like everyone else. And I think it's really sad when people lose sight of that because that must be a really lonely feeling. Like to feel like you're better than everyone else must actually be a very lonely feeling. So I don't think I'll ever have that problem. Um and that song, so I have like a lot of people have synesthesia where they see color with music, but I actually see visuals. So for me, that's why music directing music videos made so much sense because when I hear the song, I immediately start to see the video in my head. And one part of that is I saw him like with a bunch of Trey or like that person who was going to play Trey with a bunch of girls around him trying to get autographs, but he's still looking at you like, "Hey, like we played a good show, right?" And then the girls kind of like, "Listen, like I see this is what you want. Like I just want to make the music." So for me, I think that's where that lyric really came from is that vision again of two artists falling in love but wanting different things. And it's not that I don't want to not be successful. I want to be able to be successful. I just don't necessarily need to be famous. Like I always say, if I was writing for the next Jesse Reyes or writing for the next big artist, I would be equally happy as if my music was big. So like writing to me is important, and also I want to sync my songs into movies and TV. That's like one of my main goals. I got a chance to do it on a Christmas movie last year and I hope to continue to do those things. So I don't necessarily need to be the face, if that makes sense. Like I'm grateful when I am that, and people do resonate with me or my music, but fame is not the thing that I personally want. And I think people always believe that every artist wants to be massive touring stages and wants the exact same spot Beyonce has. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? And it's like, first of all, it takes a lot of work to be Beyonce. Second of all, we don't all want that, and that's okay. Like we talk a lot about mental health these days. Like that's not for everyone. That level of attention and critique and criticism and tearing down and building up and tearing down and building up. And I think if you know that about yourself and you know what you want, like I'm happy. I've said this to multiple marketing people. I'm like, if I had 1,000 people that liked my music and wanted to like listen or buy merch and play shows, and I could just play intimate little shows for the rest of my life, like I would be perfectly happy. So that's just me though. Obviously, everyone has their own goals with it.
Yeah, but that's important because you actually know who you are, right? I think a lot of people get into the industry and they don't know who they are yet sometimes, or they think they know, but then, they grow up, they change. But I think knowing what you want, you'll be able to clearly like direct yourself and kind of like say no to, like, you'll know to say no to things that are not going to work for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's like really good. And so we're getting visuals that's coming for What If. Is there anything else that we can expect from this EP, this era of this EP?
Yeah. So it's funny you say this because in as soon as we're done our interview, like an hour after we're done, I'm gonna be shooting the rest of the Toxic Temptress music video. So that will also be coming, which I'm excited about. I probably will tease that more in November because I'm putting out a lot of. There's a couple more surprises coming in October, so I'm gonna wait till November to put that out. But you can expect that as well, and I will be dropping my merch store like
Mm.
around the CP, which has been waiting and ready forever. Like it's waiting and ready, but I feel like this is the perfect time to drop it, like before the holidays. My birthday's in December, so I'm gonna be like,
Okay.
no, that's a gift to me. So yeah, I'll be dropping a lot of things around the CP, which I'm really, really excited about.
Well, that is super dope. So I'm excited to see how everything unfolds, so that I can continue to support everything that you're doing. Another question I did have too is because reading your bio, you were featured on The Breakfast Club. You played at, I think it was SOBs,
Yes.
New York City. So I want to know for you, do you find that sometimes it's easier to get your music out there or get opportunities in the US versus Canada, or do you find it's like the same?
I think it's easier. I think it's been, and I can't speak to everybody, but it's been easier for me. Again, going back to Clubhouse, I did make some really like amazing connections on Clubhouse that were in the music industry that are overseas. So that played a role in like when I went to a songwriting camp this year with Beat Cave in LA. And then I extended my trip and I was able to meet up with some of the people at the events that I know over there. And I think even just the songwriting camp, a few of us artists from here were realizing like there's opportunities in LA, and I was always told like LA is very like uppity, they're not going to let you into any rooms. And even one of the Uber drivers when I was there was like, that's exactly how it is, what do you mean? But to me, I found the opposite. And then a few people had told me, well, there's so much work here that like we sometimes need each other. Like, hey, can you help me on this song? Or can you help me write for this artist tomorrow because I actually have a show? And I think because of that, it's very different. Whereas in Canada, there's a very, very small community where there's only so much you can do. And again, there's only so many people. So there's only so many fans you can actually have in Canada. And on top of that, again, because my goal isn't like the number of fans, but on top of that, I think there's never been a huge space for R&B. Like in terms of Black Canadians, I think it's like less. I think it's like 4%, and it's not that only obviously Black people listen to R&B, but it's just like there's not enough room for it. There's not really radio stations dedicated to R&B. I think that's been a huge issue with like the Divine Browns and all the amazing R&B artists we've had growing up that haven't had a real space, a real support here. And I think that could change with the rise and the way that like hip hop is kind of taken over. In a lot of ways, I would love to see R&B be very close in the support just because they go hand in hand and a lot of your favorite hip hop songs have R&B hooks. So I think it would be really cool to support that better. But yeah, I definitely have a looking at my analytics because now everyone loves our analytics and to know where people are. My listenership has always been more in the US and then more in it's been US, Germany, and the UK. And then New Zealand pops up here and there. So Canada's in my top 5, but they're not like it's not my top country typically. So of course I love the support I've had from like Spotify and Apple here, but I can't deny I did have support from Apple in the US first. And I think that was like unfortunately sometimes Canadian artists feel like they have to be seen somewhere else first before they're seen here. And if you look at all of our major artists, it's very obvious. So I hope that can change a little bit, but I definitely feel like it's a little bit easier to be supported. And that could just be also with the nuance of being from somewhere else going anywhere. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this person's from England or this person's from maybe that's how everyone feels where they live, but I can only speak to my experience and I think Americans have been incredibly welcoming and incredibly supportive of me as an artist and don't know anything about my background or my history in music or anything like that. So it's even more authentic. And I'm very, very grateful for them for that.
So what would you like to see in like the Canadian music industry to help artists that are more so into R&B or jazz? Like what would you like to see to help support them in their artistry?
I think that's a big question because there's probably so many good answers.
I know it's a
Um,
lot that's missing.
yeah, but I think even just like on a local level, like there's not a lot of we don't have even like from what I know anyway, radio stations that are just centered around R&B and jazz, but for like a for the younger crowd, we know in our minds jazz is all older people, but when you go downtown even like Yonge and Dundas in Toronto, like there is a jazz bistro right there bumping jazz music. There are actually a lot of really cute, beautiful places in the city where you can go and listen to live jazz. There's Listening Room, which is an incredible place. I don't know if you've ever been, but they go to like they basically perform the music from different artists. So they'll have like a Sade night and they'll be all live musicians and they have a cool aspect of it where you can come up if you're a keyboard player and you're there and you can tap out the keyboard player and you get to play too, and it's very open jam. So there's a hub for it. So I just feel like support wise in terms of like more R&B related shows on a local level and like radio stations and just a little bit more like all of the big blogs and nowadays Instagram pages are all catered towards hip hop, and I feel like it'd be really cool to have a little bit more R&B, local R&B shown in there. There are, of course, people like yourself that are supporting R&B, but I just think we need even more highlight on it because I think there's fans and there's people here that have been making it for way before me, and I don't think they get the support that they deserve, and I hope that that will change. But those are some things I think are like a very good start. Is just highlighting our R&B artists before they get highlighted in another country, and then we decide to highlight them afterwards.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would love to see that too because I always tell people, especially when I'm interviewing like American people, I will tell them like there are so many talented Canadian artists, especially in the R&B genre, but unfortunately, there's not a lot of platforms for them to either tell their story or play their music. So that I hope does change really soon because I think you guys all deserve it, as well as like the older artists or the legacy artists. I feel like they don't get talked about enough, or like when there are award shows and they are awarding someone who's done incredible stuff in the past, a lot of people I find are forgotten. I sometimes feel like the same people get awarded at each show, so it would be great if other people got recognized for their contribution to Canadian music. So yeah.
I completely agree. I think there's multiple systems like that the same people get the same grants or the same awards, and then it's not to say that they shouldn't. I just think that there's the infrastructure is missing a little bit in the sense where maybe that person who got it last year now gets to be on the committee for who decides it next year or something where they're still recognized and they still can get some sort of like an award for or accolade for what they're doing, but maybe there's like more incentive to pass it on. I don't think there's enough incentive to pass anything on where I think that can change, but hopefully that will change because music industry is changing every day now with AI. There's a lot of people that are scared for their job, so hopefully that'll that will shake some people up enough to maybe support things they see the value in.
I hope so. I hope this. I don't know. It's a lot,
It's a lot. I know
but
it's a lot.
I do hope it changes for the better. Definitely. Another thing I want to ask, it goes with your lovely background that you have there. You are always in nature. So a lot of your video clips, you're in nature, you're on vacation, on the beach, beautiful palm trees are happening, the sun is shining. So, how is nature like healing for you, and or do you use it as like an escape, or you need to recharge and relax? Like, what is nature to you?
Nature to me is everything. I've had this argument with many people. Because for me for a long time, like I am very spiritual and I think I'm a little more religious now than I've ever been, but I'm like in the sense of like I know that God is real, but for me God was nature. Like there was no other way for me to describe it. And then we'll get into debates of like, well, who made nature? And I think that that's like I love having those deep questions and conversations with people. For me nature's always been my place. Like I'm only child growing up in Guelph. I was allowed to explore and like walk by myself, things you cannot do now, but by myself. And I was always bringing home like baby ducks. One year I brought home like 5 baby ducks. I would bring home mice. I would bring home baby birds. Like I was always coming home with animals every every spring. And I was always in nature. Like just as a kid by myself, not even necessarily with another friend. And my one friend Nadine and I were ended up like getting really close, I think grade 3 or grade 4, and she was my nature girly. Like we would go out together. But I think it's always been a huge part of who I am. And I think I feel very disconnected when I'm not with nature. And I always feel that a lot of problems in the world would be solved if people were able to go into nature more. I think this idea of being in a concrete box and living on top of each other is really like we wouldn't put animals like that. It's like putting animals in a cage on top of each other. And I think that we're missing that connection. And I've been reading and learning a lot more about the way that like your brain waves change in nature. And it's funny, I'm sitting here and there's trees all around me because I'm like outside. So, but your brain waves can change just with the shapes of things, the shapes that nature has, like the natural curves of the leaves and stuff. It actually produces more alpha rays, which are basically they make you calm. And I think that there's so many little things like that. Like I believe in grounding. I know some people don't, but if they do their research or even watch some documentaries on grounding, it's really interesting just putting your feet like in the sand and in the dirt. And that's something I even like nature in the winter. Like I'm weird where I love winter because there's no one around and I like the peace and quiet and the crunching of the snow. And I think it's always been an inspiration for me musically
Okay.
because of the sounds, because there's birds singing, like there already is songs happening in nature. And I think it's also for me, like going back to grief, like it's always been an escape. I've always been into like camping, and traveling is something I didn't do till I was like, I think 16 was the first time I ever traveled. I'm all about the finding a good deal. I'm not about the bougie travel. I'm about finding a deal and just getting like out of your comfort zone. And even if you can't, life is so expensive these days, like even if you can't get on a plane and go on a full-blown trip, like go to a different area in your own city, or just like Toronto's huge, go to like somewhere in Pickering, or go to like even north like Tobermory, Kincardine. There's so many beautiful places to see. And I do think, not that this is a COVID interview, but I do think during that time, people were remembering that they like to go outside and just remembering like, oh, like there's all these really cool places. And now with social media, like there's so many people that post about, hey, there's a cool place now. It's getting to October. Like, what do you like to do for the fall? Like, look at this fall trail that has. And so I think people need to do that more. I think it's so, so important, so healthy. And even if you just go for a walk once in a while, like it's always been my safe place. It's always, since I was a kid, it's always been like my thing. I had a baby raccoon I saved during that a few years ago, and like it was just so funny because I'd walk around and he'd be following me everywhere. I was like, this is just like me. You know what I mean? Like I can't escape it. I feel like I went to Atlanta, and the first 5 minutes I found a stray dog. My mom's like, you would. You know what I mean? This would happen. So I think animals and nature are just so big for me. Like healing, calming down. Like when people feel stressed out, it's like if you actually go for a walk, you will feel a difference. Like you really will. So
So, yeah.
yeah, it's my medicine, I think, is what the best way for me to describe it.
Before you go, I do want to ask, because like you said, you grew up in a musical family, like your mom works on movie sets and different things like that. So another thing that's important to you is carving out your own lane. And you did mention that, like, in the US, you get people supporting you without even knowing your background. Like, they don't know who your parents are, right? So, how are you carving out your own lane?
I think it took me a while to figure out how to do music without being attached to my parents. And then someone told me, like, your parents work so hard to get through these doors so that you don't have to open them, but you still have to walk through and be yourself. And the person who told me that, Nick Davis, will always be in my head because that is what unlocked something for me. Like, you don't have to worry about people thinking you're going to ride your dad's coattails because he did music, or think you have to be this way because he was a soul singer, but you're not, you're more jazzy. Like, I just realized that you can just be yourself. And by being myself, it, no one's going to question anything. And I think just being authentically me, I think I was a little bit over worried about a problem that doesn't exist. And I think being able to carve out my own lane is really just being true to my tone. I do have other songs where like I have different styles, different tones, which is another reason I have Beauty in the Riot, where there's two kind of vibes. But I think sticking to like the way that I sing is the way that I authentically want to sing. Like that's so I think that is a huge thing that's allowed me to carve out my own lane because I don't necessarily sound like my dad, and I'm not trying to emulate anything specific,
Hmm.
but it's okay if you do because you're their daughter. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it took me some time to really understand that and be okay with it. And it's not something I shy away from talking about. It's just also like there's also me. Like I'm my own person. I know a lot of people in the music industry that I've grown up with that can only see me as his daughter. They can't see me as an artist because in their head, like they've known me since I was a little kid. And I've just come to terms with like that's okay, that those people probably aren't going to be on your path until you're already going, and then they're going to be like, oh, okay, I can see it more now. And I think I've just spent a lot of time talking to people and thinking and realizing it's okay, especially with this like hatred for Nepto babies big like boom going on. It's like, no, it's okay to just do you, and that's enough. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. People are going to say or think whatever they want, and I can't control that. And again, back to nature, I'm big with self-care. It's been a really big thing for me. And part of that is like not allowing other people's talk to get into your head, and just to know like if you know who you are, no one can shake you because you already know who you are. So you don't need to prove it to anybody else. So that's really helped.
Yeah. But I also think too, it's like more of a topic in, I would say, I guess because I'm Black, in the Black community, I feel like we have more things to say about nepotism than maybe in other communities where things are just passed down to them, right? They have like generational wealth. And nobody really questions the amount of work the child or the grandchild is doing to like keep that up. Whereas I think we'll be more judgmental, I find, of Black people who are fortunate enough to have parents or somebody in their family that, was able to pass something down or open doors
Right.
like that. But I feel like, I don't know, you're making your music, your music is great, your voice is lovely. So um, I feel like that's, I don't know. I just look at you as you. I think it's cool that your dad is, the lead singer from Jack Soul. Like, I think that's super cool because I remember listening to their music as a kid. But I feel like you have your own unique style, your own music, so I say definitely keep going. And I cannot wait to see everything that you come out with. Starting in October, we have the EP, we have videos that are coming out that I'm really excited about. Merch also. So that is another
Yes.
important one. So keep a lookout for the merch. And we can all give her a great birthday gift by buying the merch so that December, she has those coins coming in.
Thank you. Thank you
Well,
so much.
of course. Is there anything you want to leave us with before I let you go?
No, I feel like this has been like a really great conversation, and like thank you so much for having me. I think it's nice to talk to someone who really like loves R&B and is an R&B girly. Um and yeah, I love how you mentioned just, all the different genres I do, and just keeping that like I do other things in fusions, and I think that's very Toronto. I think because like you mentioned, we grew up with so many different cultures, the most diverse city in the world. So obviously we have influences from everywhere, and I think that I'm excited for people to see and hear this, and I'm excited for them to hear like all of my other, sounds and vibes as well, which will still be rooted in nature, but yeah.
Of course. And where can we follow you and listen to the music that you already have out now and music videos that you have out now that you've also directed? directed?
Yes, I have. I've directed many music videos actually. I went back the other day and was like, "Oh, girl, you're doing a lot of these." So Beauty in the Riot, it's the same on every platform to make it very simple. And yeah, I have quite a few music videos on YouTube and many different styles of songs. I have some pop alt songs, which is a genre that I love. Just I love pop in general. So I have those, and then I also have my jazzy R&B vibes. So yeah, I have like a little bit of something for everyone. So I would love for people to check it out. And this EP does feature some of those songs that are out, but it does feature a few new ones, and I'm really excited for people to hear.
Perfect. Well, I would love to have you back on the podcast later on. There's so much more that I want to talk to you about because we didn't even talk about you directing. I wanted to also get into other genres of music that you also, sing and tap into. So I would love to have you on again in the future. But for everybody that's listening and watching, this is the Total R&B Podcast. My name is Loreena. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at total.rb. And I will be back with a brand new interview.
Thank you.